What's up, guys? Going to go over the Q&A thread that I posted yesterday. So, let's see, today is August 7th. So, this was August 6th thread, 2017. This was from Facebook. Let's see. Quite a few questions. I had to start capping these off at a certain amount of questions because these response videos were just getting too long and probably boring. So let's get started. First question: what's the best balance between potassium and sodium for an aggressive load on Friday? Would it be the same 3-to-1 we generally want, or generally speaking? Also, other than potato, what food sources would you use to get more potassium in someone's diet? I'm assuming bananas might not be the best fit, given the circumstances due to fructose. Okay, so aggressive load, I'm assuming you're referring to kind of like a rapid backload, in which case, you're going to want sodium higher, a little bit higher than potassium in that case, just to keep everything in the muscle cell per se. And what I'm talking about there is really just the sodium potassium pump. It requires both, and they're both going to be taken into this uptaken into the cell. But potassium goes too high, then it can kind of, I don't know a really good term for it, leak. Some of that will leak out, and then you won't be as full. In other words, or it'll get into the space in between, or subcutaneous, which we really don't want it. Now, as far as how much, if you look at the day as a whole, you're consuming a lot of food, so sodium is going to go pretty high naturally, but I wouldn't, you can still add just, little bits to each meal. It's not really a big deal. You're taking in so many carbohydrates that if you're adding a little bit to each meal and your sodium is a little bit higher than normal, and you still have a little bit of potassium foods in the diet, that all that sodium is going to help with the, transporting the carbohydrates, because you need that to transport the carbohydrates, especially with such a huge amount. If you're talking a true rapid backload, 900, 1,000, 1,200 or more carbs in one day, and all that water that you're going to be drinking too. So, as far as like foods go, potatoes are great. That'd be a great one for a rapid backload. I would suggest probably peeling the potatoes. You can use white potatoes, russet potatoes, red potatoes. Any of those are fine. Yams or sweet potatoes are okay for most people. They can cause some GI irritation for some people, especially in high amounts. So just know that you tolerate them well before you start hammering, tons and tons and tons of. Because when we're talking a rapid backload, if you're including potatoes, you're eating pounds of them in a day easily. And then, as far as other sources go, I don't really see a reason to add any other sources if you don't want. There's not really any reason to. A lot of your other sources of potassium are going to be things like fruits that you mentioned. You say bananas, you're worried about the fructose. Yeah, I probably wouldn't load tons of fruit, if any, in a rapid backload, just because you want that glycogen to go to your muscles and not your liver. So I probably wouldn't worry about it. I would honestly just stick to potatoes of some variety, and then you can rotate it with a food that's not necessarily super potassium rich. That's a simple carb. A lot of people will do like a potatoes and cereal. I know that's very popular. So, and then another question: off-season potassium and sodium ratios. So typically you hear a 2-to-1 ratio when someone gets 4, 5, 6 grams of sodium. It's hard to eat double that in potassium. Do you think hitting around 5 grams daily is good average? I would say if it would be good to keep potassium over sodium. If you're not hitting a 2-to-1 exactly, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but that's a good mark to shoot for. You should have probably a higher than average sodium intake just because of all the water intake and perspiration and the amount of food that you're eating and so on and so forth. Man, for muscle contractions and what have you. So I would probably try to get close to that 2-to-1 mark if you can. You can supplement with potassium too. I mean, you don't want to go crazy with it, but typically potassium supplement tablet form, it's not super absorbable. So, it's hard to say if you're absorbing all of it, but typically they're going to be about 99 milligrams. I'm not sure why it's 99. A lot of them are 99 though, per tab. Or you can use like a new salt, salt substitute, things like that, to add potassium. And just work your way up. If you want to hit that 2-to-1 ratio, which is good, and you're taking in 5 grams of, or you said 4 or 5 or 6. I mean, let's say you're taking 4 grams of sodium, work your way up to 8 grams of potassium slowly, or to 10 grams. And get a lot through food. Tons of veggies too. Okay. Oh yeah, this was another question from my messenger. I think it was a private message, but he added it to the thread, which was nice. So, can excessive chronic usage of stimulants lead to insulin resistance and higher fasted levels over time? So this is an interesting question, and I don't think this is something a lot of people think about. They don't really link stimulants with insulin resistance, but yes, because let's think a little bit about what they do. When you're stimulating the central nervous system and you're releasing adrenaline, you're also going to raise your blood glucose levels. So you do that chronically, and it's going to be just like eating chronically. Think about if you were to eat, a little bit of candy all the time and do it over and over and over again. Then yeah, it's going to give you some insulin resistance. So it's not really much different than that. I mean, it's not going to be like massive glucose increases like eating 100 grams of sugar, but it's still going to be doing it, and it will absolutely affect you over time. There's studies to show it, and it doesn't take a study really. I mean, I've seen it happen in real life with people that have chronic stimulant use, and a lot of people do. So if you're having both, then I would say they're probably connected. Let's see. Then an add-on to that. Let's see. So yes, so what about daily therapeutic dose of adderall for someone with ADD such as myself, or at least your thoughts on whether it could cause insulin resistance like other stimulants could? I don't know, to be 100% honest. I mean, you would think as far as the mechanism goes that it would do the same thing, but I mean, I have no experience with it, and it's not nearly as common as caffeine, so it's hard to say. I mean, I could probably dig up something like actual study on it or something, but I would think that it probably could. I don't see why it would be a lot different, but again, it's hard to say. Okay, good way to reintroduce carbs after doing a few months lower carb. I've been eating lower carb 50 to 100 for a few months while using herbal antimicrobials to fix gut health. It's definitely gotten a lot better. What is a good way to up your carbs without messing with digestion? Definitely wasn't keto or anything like that. Kept the carb meals to 1 or 2 on training days. Would increasing 20 to 50 grams every other week while decreasing fats be a good idea? I still keep non-training days relatively low carb. I mean, I guess it depends on what your goal is. Like, I mean, if your goal is to increase calories and also gain muscle and gain weight, then I mean, you could go by the scale there I mean, you're going to want to watch scale weight go up, to some extent. So, you could watch that and kind of base your increases, and metabolically your metabolism is going to start upregulating again to try to catch up with that if you were in a deficit beforehand. Body temperature, all that good stuff. So I would say that's totally going to depend. If you just want some generic, way to say, hey, increase this many carbs this much each week, it's pretty much impossible to say. I mean, if you want to go super safe, increase it 15 or 20 carbs each week for a little while. And I mean, your metabolism is probably going to upregulate. You're going to refill glycogen, and your NEAT levels are going to increase. All these things are going to happen, and you're probably not even going to gain any body fat. So, and you say while decreasing fats. So I'm not sure that you would even need to do that necessarily either. But again, that makes it kind of confusing. I'm not really sure what your goal is. If you're decreasing fats and increasing carbs, then I would guess you would just be trying to stay at maintenance, in which case I would increase carbs pretty slow. Bonus question. I know some people, when adding in probiotics, may feel worse symptoms like bloating and gas may increase and the body adjusts. How long will one wait before giving up on a probiotic? Give it a week or two. I would say at least 2 weeks or more. But if anything, lower the amount of probiotic and start slower. Because, I mean, the amount of probiotic that someone's going to need is going to vary depending on the situation and depending on what's already in what their gut microbiome is already made up of. So start slow and work your way up. Don't just jump into something like a VSL3, it's hundreds of billions of units, and your stomach's upset and you're shitting yourself. So, yeah, don't do that. Let's see, a couple questions here. Is running low-dose insulin and HGH multiple times a day to increase IGF bullshit or not? Okay. No, it's not really bullshit. I mean, the two are going to work synergistically, and if you're running it in low doses multiple times a day, what you could potentially get to is an autocrine increase. And the idea that people will kind of toss around with that more frequent dosing like that would be localized. So, and some of it's going to go systemic no matter what. But if you get some localized increase, in muscle tissue, then it's not as much of it is going systemic into the gut tissues. So the receptors and like the, in the intestines and things like that. So it's not bullshit. It definitely works. There's definitely merit to that. So I would say that with a sound protocol, you could definitely do that. However, you also have to look at, how are you setting up your diet? Are you also, with that, I mean, how low are you going? Are you doing that on a ketogenic diet or a really low carb diet where you're talking like 1 IU of insulin at a time, and that's just basically counterbalancing the little bit of blood glucose rise from the GH? Or are you talking you're having carbs in every single meal, and GH and insulin in? So the issue becomes, are you just going to get fat doing this? Which you could, or you could gain, good amount of muscle doing it too. So just kind of depends on the setup. And this might also be a case, where basal insulin comes into play too, where you have this basal insulin present, and then you can pulse the GH in there as well. So pretty much always have the insulin there, and then the GH is, there when you pulse it. Okay, low dose T3 in the off season be beneficial if blood work shows someone's levels on the lower end. Well, I mean, it's going to raise your levels. and I mean it's going to benefit you, bringing you a little higher in the range. Obviously depending on how much you use, but I would probably look at why your levels are low. Look at everything in the in your thyroid labs, or get more complete thyroid labs if you notice that. Is your T4 low? Maybe you're not converting enough T4 to T3. Maybe, yeah, so, it could be a conversion step. Look at the antibodies. Look at reverse T3. Just kind of look at and see look at free T3 also. I mean, maybe your T total's a little bit low on the low end, but your free is good. So, make sure that it looks good before you jump to this, because basically if you're going to use it in an off season, then if you go into a deficit where you're trying to lose body fat, I mean your T3, your thyroid naturally is going to downregulate anyhow, so you're going to need it there too. So you're going to always need it, or want to use it, or you're just going to go back to where you were low again. So you're pretty much going to be using it forever at that point. So just make sure that that's what you want to do. Calico or Tabby? What do you think? Calico or Tabby? Neither. That's the choices. Neither. Dang. What's that? They're both too bitchy. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really a fan of either. I think the Calico cats are kind of cool looking, but it's a tough question. Sorry. And ribeye or strip steak? Shit, I don't know. Fucking probably neither. I do like steak, but kind of a basic guy. I like sirloin, but I do like a good, really tender filet mignon. But I'm too broke for that shit, so I'm not gonna be spending $40 on a steak that's that big. No thanks. I think the last time I actually had steak was because it was part of peaking for my last show. I did have steak there, and it was a ribeye because I needed the fat. So that was good. Really fatty, but it was good. But everything's good at that point. So let's see. I need to keep getting through these. Do men and women need different refeed free meal structures in order to maximize them for both in contest prep and off season? Well, in general, refeed or free meals, when I include them or however I use them, are going to be just dependent on the person and their metabolism. I would say in general, though, men and women do have different metabolisms. Women tend to maybe be a little bit slower just as a whole, but they also have a lot less. I wouldn't even necessarily say slower, and that's just because their body mass is a lot lower. But I mean, no, I wouldn't say it needs to be based. It's definitely not gender based, would be my answer. It's going to totally depend. So, I mean, I have women that eat, 300 or 400 carbs in the off season, and guys that can hardly eat 200, or women that eat as many calories as guys that are almost double their size. So it just totally depends on the person, and the refeeding totally depends on the situation, how lean someone is, how insulin sensitive they are. It's just totally depends. I couldn't even begin to tell you that there would be gender differences, because there's not really anything distinct. Okay. When dieting someone to lose weight, do you have a macro blueprint to start? Many say tailor read, but everyone starts from somewhere. I'm not sure what tailor read, or if it's supposed to be tailor made. I'm not sure. Well, ideally, I would like to just look at what they're already doing. So I get it food logs, or if they already have a set diet that they're following before me, that maybe the diet's not working, but they're following it, or at least a close, rough estimation of what they're eating, anything like that, I can base it off of, okay, this is about where we're at. I can create a surplus, or I can create a deficit. And that's just relying on how accurate their information is. Sometimes I find that it's what they're telling me is way off, and their calculations are way off, and I can pretty much see that pretty darn quick because I get the first update and the weight's like crazy one way or the other, and they're really full or they're starving or whatever. So that's one way to look at it. Or if they have nothing structured at all whatsoever, then I can use kind of the 10 to 20 system, which this is super basic, and because there is really no way to be, no formula that's going to be able to tell you this, answer this question. But with the 10 to 20, I mean, you can basically look at someone and say, hey, I can get a good estimation of what your body type is, about if, you can go back to the old body types, your endomorph, ectomorph, mesomorphs, and look at, hey, they want to lose weight. They're about 200 pounds. I'm looking at them. They're probably have 25% body fat. So they're about 150 pounds of lean body mass times. It's a male. Put him at 15. He's probably average genetics, average metabolism, average everything. Put him at about 15. That's probably going to be about the high end of things, and then I can start bringing it down. And you could do 15. It'd be 15 times 150 pound lean body mass, and there's the calories. And you could do times his body weight instead of body mass, but I don't tend to do that unless they're already relatively lean, just because if you have a big amount of body fat, then it's going to totally throw the numbers way off. Someone that's super, slow metabolism, you might start them closer to 10. Faster metabolism, you might start them closer to 20. But again, that's about as close as you're going to get. That's about as close as I get. I mean, really, just being honest, I just let them know, hey, this is just totally a starting point, and I thoroughly plan to adjust this pretty quick if I need to. But I can pretty much tell right off the bat, right off that first adjustment, exactly where it needs to be. So as long as they have a base, it's easy to figure it out from there, even if the base is wrong. See, is 2 grams of protein per pound too much when trying to gain lean mass? How much protein and fats per pound would you think would be optimal? I don't think you necessarily have to have 2 grams of protein per pound, because if you're talking about per pound of body weight, especially, I mean, if you have a little bit of body fat too, I mean, you're talking way over 2 grams of protein per pound of lean body mass. You probably don't need that much. I mean, you might be able to utilize that much, but I mean, you could probably go a little bit lower to the 1.5, or at least calculate your lean body mass, and 2 times that. There's not going to be probably any disadvantage necessarily, but you probably don't need that much. You start getting too high, you start having a ton of gluconeogenesis, and you're just eating expensive carbs basically, because it ends up being glucose anyhow. So and how much proteins and fat do you think? Well, I just talked about the protein. So I mean, as far as fat goes, it depends on the person. If they do well on carbs, then I might just keep fat on the lower end of what's necessary for health purposes. If it's an off-season situation, I might put them at 40 to 50 grams, might get them up to that and not really move them much, and just work on carbs and maybe add a little bit of protein here and there as their lean body mass goes up. But that just totally depends. Some people I add both. I add fat and carbs, and some people I add more fats than I add carbs. So that is something that you would have to just base on what they metabolize the best and what they feel best on, what they perform best on, and so on and so forth. But in general, I mean, optimal I couldn't answer because it depends on the person, but you could say minimal, you need the minimum amount at least for healthy bodily function. Don't run someone's fats at 15 grams in the off season. That'd be stupid. So how bad is it to do a mini cut during a cruise? I don't think it's bad at all, actually. I mean, the biggest thing would be if someone's blasting cruising, if they just got done blasting, it's like right at the end, don't jump right into a calorie deficit. That's probably not the best idea. At least let hormones stabilize and then work on it. Once hormones are stable and not declining, and once they've been able to, the biggest thing is once they've been able to solidify a good weight set point where their body feels comfortable at this new high body weight that they've gained, then worry about it. And that's the same thing at the end of a blast. If you're getting where, the gains aren't really coming much anymore, they're about towards the end, someone's close to the end of it, and then maybe just have them just not worry about increasing calories anymore. Just hold, just refine that spot, get used to that spot for a few weeks, then go back to the cruise, hold there, maybe a week or two, 3 weeks maybe. But keep working on gaining strength this whole time, or maintaining at least, and then you're good. Body's comfortable, body comp's stable, then worry about your cut. But as far as like cutting on a cruise, no, there's nothing wrong with that at all, because people prep for shows naturally all the time when hormones get low. So no, actually, that's thinking back to most people I work with. I think most of them probably do that. They probably all cut on cruise. I think super physiological hormone levels are going to be best used for muscle growth anyhow. So unless it's a prep situation, then that's pretty much going to be what they're best for. A couple more here. Does growth increase subcutaneous water, and when to cut it out before the show? So yeah, it definitely can. Some of this too is electrolyte imbalance. There's some sodium retention with growth hormone. You want to make sure that your potassium's a little bit higher. So keep that in mind. You might even need to eat a little bit more potassium, maybe supplement or use some salt substitute or something. I talked about that in the beginning of this. So keep that in mind. That could be part of the water retention. Do that. See how see how it looks. And then, you might say, hey, there's not really much water there. But in general, just as a safety precaution, most people are going to want to cut it out at least a week or, 2 weeks out at least from the show. And then make sure that it's all gone if your goal is to be as dry as possible. And, there's select people that don't have to. But, it's not going to hurt anything to do it. Unless you're tons and tons and tons of it and then you lose a bunch of fullness. But chances are you're probably going to lose a lot of subcutaneous water anyhow and look better. So, good questions. And that is it, guys. Holy crap, we're going up on 30 minutes, so I'm going to cut it off here. And thank you guys for all the questions, and we'll do it again soon.